Shalom from Zion. This is Chuck Cohen with video update number 5. This will be our last update. Tomorrow we'll be going on our prayer tour. And normally we do not take video updates on our prayer tour. If we can, we might send out one, but usually we don't. It's pretty tiring and we're pretty concentrated on praying on the land. But we've had a wonderful day today, and it started last night with Claude Ezagori, our precious brother who's a pastor in Tiberias, sharing a message on the Israeli body. And first, he mentioned how we have to thank the Lord that in the year 2017 there is a growing, thriving Israeli body of thousands of Israeli believers. We're not sure of the exact figures, but of thousands of Israeli believers. And he told us that he felt that the Israeli body was really the spiritual center of the body of the nation of Israel, which is actually true, because the Israeli body of Messiah, those of us who believe in Yeshua, are what God is doing when he's bringing his people home so that all Israel might be saved. But Claude also cautioned us with some yellow lights he sees. Not red lights, not green lights, but some yellow lights. And one of the first yellow lights is he felt that God needs to impart more faith to us to believe that God's will is to provide us with spiritual food directly from his word and his spirit. We've had a tendency to receive from the outside, and there's nothing wrong with receiving from our brothers and sisters in the nations, except if we don't have discernment, because not everything that comes from the nations is kosher. And so we need to be looking to God more, we need to be reading his word more, and we need to be recognizing that the word of the Lord is actually going to go forth from Zion in these last days. One of the other yellow lights he had was that there are a tendency for us to look to the nations for our provision, financial, not just spiritual, but financial. And we appreciate all the help we've received from the Gentile congregations, or even the Messianic Jewish congregations in exile. But at some point, we need to recognize that our ultimate provision is God. Whether it comes through the hands of man or not, it's God who will provide our needs. And that prevents us from being tied into anybody from the outside who might want to manipulate us through money. And that's happened before, where congregations here in the land have been manipulated by people on the outside who've given large sums of money and then expected something in return. There's also a problem in Israel with some congregations that are very well off and some congregations that are very poor. And that needs to be balanced out. We need to figure out a way of helping our poorer brothers and sisters. We need to have discernment. This word discernment has come up often, if you recall. We need to have discernment, especially in intercession, concerning strategy on how to pray for the various areas of Israel. A congregation in Tel Aviv needs to be prayed for in a different way than a congregation in Jerusalem, than a congregation in Tiberias, than a congregation in Beersheba, because there are different spirits, different things that each one of us are dealing with. The body also needs to have tested prophets, and how that comes about, only God knows. But this is one of the things he felt we were lacking, were people who were maybe not prophets, but had a prophetic understanding and could be a prophetic voice in times of need. And finally, we needed to be aware of worldliness creeping into the church. This is not just a problem here, obviously it's a problem in many of the churches that are in the free countries. It's much less of a problem in churches that are under persecution. Anyway, it was an excellent message, and again, that's available online for you to either listen to or download. Then this morning, our brother Jeremy Smith shared with us on Hannah and Hannah's prayer, and the times were evil that Hannah was praying for a son in 1 Samuel because of Eli's sons being wicked priests and what they were doing with the sacrifices, what they were doing with the women who were coming to the temple. And so we need to recognize that in our day there are times that we face evil times, and our place in the kingdom is a position that is not attained by force, but by yielding. The more we yield to God, the more our position in the kingdom is secure. Then when we got to the intercession part of the day, Claude got up there at the pulpit and led us in corporate prayer for the body of Messiah. And the first thing he did is we gave thanks for the body of Messiah. We thanked him for example, new worship songs that are coming out of Israel, especially in Hebrew. We thanked him and reminded him that he said, I will build my church. We thanked him that at some point all Israel is going to be saved, and the body of Messiah in Israel right now is the first fruits. We thanked him for the regrafting in of the natural branches into their own tree, as per Romans 11. And there were many, many other prayers. And we also blessed the Lord Yeshua for seating Messianic Jews in the IDF, in the Knesset, amongst the ultra-Orthodox. And we saw that Ezekiel 36, 24 to 28 was coming to pass today, where God brought his people back, and then here he was saving them. And then we prayed for more discernment and more faith, one of the things that Claude shared with us the previous nights. And so we prayed various prayers for us to have more discernment, especially concerning the charismatic part of the body, that not every wind of doctrine that blows through this land is of God. And even if some things are of God in the nations, that doesn't necessarily mean they're for God, for us, in his land today. And so we needed to have discernment to know. We needed to have discernment to know whom was sent by Yeshua and who was not sent by Yeshua, which meant they were either sent by themselves or sent by the enemy. We asked the Lord to raise up shepherds after his own heart, in line with his promises in Jeremiah 23, that when he brought us back from the north, he would do exactly that. And there were other prayers said for the body. We asked for the Lord to, I can't even read my own handwriting. It's getting late in the day here. Then in the second session, there's a meeting that Benjamin Netanyahu, our prime minister, wants to set up with Donald Trump, the new president of the United States. And he wants to set up that meeting, at least the reports we're getting, as soon as possible, possibly in the middle of February. By the way, Donald Trump is planning to meet with Theresa May, the British Prime Minister, next week. And she has been a real blessing in her stance for Israel up to this point. But we were concerned about this meeting between Netanyahu and Trump, not in any way that we don't trust Netanyahu, and obviously we're not sure about where Trump's coming from, but we wanted to make sure that God would cover this meeting. This is very, very important. So we prayed into this for God's perfect timing and his agenda, that there would be a godly relationship that would be built between Bibi and Donald, that Trump's ears would be open to hear Bibi's heart, and that Netanyahu would become to Donald Trump his if not his number one of his closest advisors concerning things going on in the Middle East. One of the people prayed, Lord, you rule over the kings of the earth, therefore at this meeting, rule. We say amen to that. And we also asked that Israel, through Bibi Netanyahu and whoever else would be there, would avoid being sucked into the trap of the big deal, which Donald Trump, unfortunately, has talked about a number of times. If we could make peace between Israel and the Palestinians, it would be the big deal. And if Jared Kushner, this guy who's my son-in-law, if he can't do it, no one can do it. Well, I hope he can't do it, because the last thing we want is to see another Islamic terror state raised up anywhere, let alone having to divide God's land to do that. So we prayed into that. And then we broke up into small groups and asked the Lord to watch over this meeting and to give wisdom to Netanyahu and to set Donald Trump free from seeking for the goal of being the one to create a Palestinian state. Then Eliyahu shared with us what's happening along the Gaza border, where Hamas is preparing for war again. They're continuing to build tunnels, they're building rockets, they're even developing naval commandos, and yet our current defense minister, Avigdor Lieberman, said the next war with Hamas will be the last war. We would like to hold them to that, although if we totally destroy Hamas, That would mean us having to go in and take over Gaza with the whole mess that's going on there. It would be better for the Gazans. It would be a burden for us. So we asked the Lord to make sure that Israel's preparations were complete, that we would know how to have terror tunnel detection devices available, that we would have an anti-mortar defense. And one of the other things we prayed is that between Israel and America, the Hamas Charter would be known throughout the world. The Hamas Charter not only wants the destruction of Israel, it also seeks the destruction of every single Jew on the face of the earth. And yet we have many people in Europe and in the United Nations who are not Muslim countries who think Hamas is not a terrorist organization. It is a sick, upside-down world. Then we prayed into UN 2334 a little bit, and we asked for the Lord to totally break up and destroy this two-state solution. That as far as we're concerned, it's over and done, but yet there are still too many people seeking to establish a Palestinian state on this land. No way. We are against a Palestinian state on this land. If some other country wants a Palestinian state, let that be established there. Then finally, we ended by praying for Israel's salvation, and we did that in two ways. Number one, that the churches would realize that God's family will never be complete until the Jewish people are in their rightful place, grafted back in to the tree, being part of the church of God. There's not a Jewish church and a Gentile church. There's one church that has Jewish branches and Gentile branches. And yet the church, for the most part in the West, is deaf, dumb, and blind to this. They don't have a burden for this. They don't understand how important this is to God. And so we prayed much into that. And then finally, we prayed for specific groups in Israel to receive salvation. And amongst them was the IDF, terror victims, drug addicts and prostitutes, the LGBT community, Holocaust survivors. And that's how we ended our time. We finished by just spending a couple of minutes praising the Lord Yeshua, who is King of Israel, King of Kings, and the soon-coming ruler of the world. And all we can say is, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, blessed are you, comes in the name of the Lord. Lord Yeshua, come quickly. Well, we thank you for joining us, and Lord willing, we'll see you next year, although we are considering sending out video updates a little bit more often. Lord bless you. Thank you for praying for us and with us. Shalom from Zion.